of letting go, but he knew there was still more to understand. His emotions, his anger, his fears, his sadness, still felt like forces beyond his control. As they walked into the meditation hall, Rama turned to the monk. "Master, I have spent my whole life being controlled by my emotions. When I am angry, I act in anger. When I am sad, I feel consumed by sadness. How do I stop them from controlling me?" The monk smiled and motioned for Rama to sit. "Tell me," he said, "when a storm rises in the sky, does the sky itself disappear?" Rama frowned. "No. The sky is still there. The storm just passes through." The monk nodded. "Exactly. Your mind is like the sky. Your emotions are just passing storms. They come and go, but they are not you." Rama felt his heart race at those words. "But when I feel something strongly, it feels like it is me." The monk reached for a nearby cup filled with water. He lifted it high in the air and then, without warning, let it drop. The cup shattered into countless pieces. Rama flinched. The monk looked at him and asked, "Did you choose to flinch?" Rama hesitated. "No, it just happened." The monk nodded. "That is how emotions work. They appear suddenly. You do not choose them. But here is what you must understand. Just because an emotion arises does not mean you have to obey it. Just because the storm comes does not mean the sky is gone." Rama sat in silence, letting the words sink in. The monk continued. "Most people are like leaves in the wind. When anger comes, they become anger. When fear comes, they become fear. But you are not a leaf. You are the tree. The wind may blow, but the tree remains." Rama inhaled deeply, trying to absorb the lesson. "But Master, what should I do when strong emotions arise? How do I stop myself from being controlled by them?" The monk's voice was calm. "You do not fight them. You do not suppress them. You simply watch them." Rama's brow furrowed. "Watch them?" "Yes," the monk said. "Imagine you are sitting at the edge of a river. Your emotions are like leaves floating on the surface. Most people jump into the river, letting the current drag them away. But you must sit on the bank and simply observe." Rama closed his eyes and imagined it. A river flowing gently, leaves drifting by, some small, some large. Each leaf carried an emotion: anger, sadness, fear. But instead of grabbing onto them, instead of being swept away, he simply watched. The leaves passed, and the river continued to flow. His breath slowed. His chest felt lighter. He opened his eyes and met the monk's steady gaze. "So, when I feel anger, I do not need to react. When I feel sadness, I do not need to drown in it. I simply let them pass like leaves on a river." The monk smiled. Exactly. When you learn to observe your emotions rather than be them, you become free. Rama exhaled, feeling something shift within him. His emotions had always felt like an unstoppable force, but now, for the first time, he saw them for what they truly were. Temporary, fleeting. Just like the clouds in the sky, just like the ripples in a pond. They would always come and go. The monk stood. Now that you have learned to free yourself from the storm of emotions, there is something else you must practice. Something that will change the way you see your entire life. Rama looked up, his heart open and ready. What is it? The monk's eyes gleamed. Gratitude. The first light of dawn painted the sky in hues of gold and crimson as Rama and the monk stepped outside. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of morning dew. Rama felt lighter than he had in years. He had begun to understand the nature of his emotions, how they came and went like passing clouds. But there was still a longing in his heart, something missing, though he could not yet name it. As they walked, the monk gestured toward the rising sun. Tell me, Rama, when was the last time you truly saw the sun rise? Rama blinked. I see it every morning. The monk shook his head. No. When was the last time you truly paused to feel its warmth on your skin, to notice its colors, to appreciate it? Rama was silent. He had never thought about it before. The sun had always been there, rising and setting, unnoticed. The monk picked up a small cup from a nearby table and handed it to Rama. Drink. Rama sipped the water. It was fresh, cool, and soothing. What do you taste? The monk asked. Rama frowned slightly. It's just water. The monk smiled. Yes, but what if, for one day, you had no water? What if you were dying of thirst under the hot sun, and then, at last, you were given a single sip? How would this water taste then? Rama swallowed, suddenly aware of how much he had taken for granted. The monk's voice was soft, but powerful. Most people do not suffer from lack. They suffer because they do not notice what they already have. Rama looked down at the cup in his hands, his heart pounding with realization. The mind, the monk continued, is always chasing more wealth, more success, more happiness. But when you are always chasing, you never see what is already before you. You become blind to the gifts you already possess. And so, you suffer. Rama felt something deep inside him shift. He thought of all the times he had complained about what he lacked, about what had gone wrong, about what he wished were different. How often had he overlooked the simplest joys? Clean water, a warm meal, a kind word from a stranger. How often had he let these small blessings go unnoticed? The monk placed a hand on his shoulder. Gratitude, he said, is not just about saying thank you. It is about opening your eyes. It is about realizing that right now, in this moment, You already have everything you need to feel peaceful, to feel alive. Rama took a slow, deep breath. He looked at the sky, at the trees swaying gently in the wind, at the soft earth beneath his feet. For the first time in his life, he truly saw them. And in that moment, he felt something he had never felt before: contentment. He turned to the monk, his voice quiet but certain. So, happiness is not something I have to chase. It is something I can choose right now. The monk's eyes gleamed. Yes, and the more you practice gratitude, the more you will see life itself is a gift. Rama exhaled slowly, a deep warmth spreading through his chest. He had spent so many years searching for happiness, believing it was something he had to find. But now he understood. It had always been here, in the sunlight, in the water, in the air he breathed. He looked at the monk with quiet reverence. I will practice this every day. The monk smiled. Good. But remember, life is always changing. Nothing stays the same. And the next lesson you must learn is acceptance. The morning mist still lingered over the monastery gardens as Rama and the monk walked along a narrow stone path. Birds called softly from the trees, their songs weaving through the quiet air. Rama felt lighter than he ever had before. His heart, once heavy with restlessness, now carried a newfound peace. But as they walked, a thought emerged, one that he could not ignore. Master, Rama said, breaking the silence, I understand the power of gratitude, but what if something is taken away? What if I lose something I love? How do I remain grateful when life takes more than it gives? The monk was silent for a long time. Then he gestured toward a single leaf hanging from the branch of a great oak tree. Do you see this leaf? Rama nodded. The monk reached out and gently plucked it from the branch. He held it in his palm, watching as the wind carried it away, spinning softly through the air until it landed on the earth below. This, the monk said, is the nature of all things. Rama frowned. But why must things change? Why can't they stay as they are? The monk knelt beside the fallen leaf. Because nothing in this world is permanent. Not the trees, not the mountains, not even the stars. He lifted his gaze to meet Rama's. And certainly not us. Rama felt his chest tighten. He had always feared change, the loss of loved ones, the passage of time, the way things slipped through his fingers, no matter how tightly he held onto them. The monk continued. Suffering does not come from change itself. It comes from resisting change. When you wish for something to last forever, you fight against the nature of life itself. And in that fight, you create your own suffering. Rama swallowed. But how can I just accept it? If I love something, how can I let it go? The The monk smiled gently. Letting go does not mean you stop loving. It means you love without attachment, without fear, without the desperate need to hold on. Rama was silent, his mind turning over the words. The monk placed a hand on his shoulder. Tell me, do you grieve for the sunset each night, knowing it will disappear? Rama hesitated. No, because I know it will rise again. The monk nodded. Exactly. And yet, no two sunsets are ever the same, just like no two moments in life. You do not own them. You cannot keep them. You can only cherish them while they are here, and let them go when it is time. Rama felt something shift inside him, a deep understanding, a release. He had spent so much of his life trying to hold on to people, to moments, to the past. But now he saw the truth. Peace is not found in holding on. Peace is found in allowing life to flow. He looked at the monk with newfound clarity. I understand now. To truly live, I must embrace change, without fear, without resistance. The monk smiled. Yes, when you accept the impermanence of all things, you are finally free. Rama inhaled deeply, feeling a sense of liberation wash over him. The fear that had always clung to him, the fear of loss, of endings, of change, was beginning to loosen its grip. The monk turned, walking back toward the monastery. Now, he said, there is something else you must learn. Something that will not only bring you peace, but will also bring you joy. Rama followed. What is it? The monk's voice was warm. Generosity. The sun climbed higher, casting golden light over the monastery's stone pathways. As Rama walked beside the monk, he felt lighter than ever before. Learning to accept change had freed him from the fear of loss. But as they passed through the village once more, he noticed something. People walking with their heads down, burdened by worries. A beggar sat by the roadside, his hands cupped together in silent hope. A woman clutched a small loaf of bread, hesitating before breaking it in half to share with her child. Rama's heart ached. Master, he said, if peace is found within, why do so many still suffer? Why does the world feel so full of lack? The monk smiled and gestured to the beggar. Come, he said. They approached the man, who looked up with tired eyes. Without a word, the monk reached into his robe and handed the man a small piece of fruit. The beggar's face lit up, not just with relief, but with something deeper, a kind of warmth, a silent gratitude that spoke more than words ever could. As they walked away, the monk turned to Rama. Did you see that? Rama nodded. Yes, he was grateful. The monk's eyes gleamed. But did you notice something else? Who was happier in that exchange, the man who received, or the one who gave? Rama hesitated. The beggar had smiled, yes. But the monk? There had been something almost luminous about him. A quiet, unshakable joy. The monk continued. Most people believe that happiness comes from receiving. They chase wealth, success, material things, thinking that once they have enough, they will finally feel fulfilled. But the great secret is this: true abundance comes not from what you take, but from what you give. Rama furrowed his brow. But if you give too much, won't you have less? The monk chuckled. That is the illusion. The more you give, the more you have, not in possessions, but in joy, in connection, in a heart that feels full, not because it is holding on to things, but because it is constantly flowing. Rama was silent, his mind turning over the idea. The monk gestured around them. Look at nature. The river does not hoard its water. It flows freely, nourishing everything in its path. The sun does not keep its light to itself. It shines for all. And yet, does the river ever run dry? Does the sun ever stop burning? Rama shook his head. No, they always give, and yet they are never empty. The monk smiled. Exactly. When you give from the heart, you are not losing, you are expanding. The more kindness you share, the more it multiplies. The more love you offer, the more it returns to you. Rama thought about the woman he had seen earlier, the one who had shared her small loaf of bread with her child. He had seen hesitation in her eyes, but he had also seen something else. A quiet contentment, a knowing that despite her limited means, she had given something precious. He turned to the monk. So, the more I give, the richer my spirit becomes? The monk nodded. Yes, and generosity is not just about money or food. It is a smile to a stranger, a kind word to someone in pain, time spent listening to a friend. Even a small act of giving has the power to change the world. Rama inhaled deeply, feeling his heart expand. He had spent so much of his life thinking about what he needed, what he lacked. But now he saw the truth. The fastest way to feel abundant was to give. The monk placed a hand on his shoulder. When you practice generosity, you do not just change others, you change yourself. Rama nodded, a sense of warmth filling him. He was beginning to understand. The monk smiled. Now that you have learned to give, there is one last lesson. A lesson that will free you from suffering once and for all. Rama's breath caught. What is it? The monk's voice was steady, full of quiet power. Nirvana. The monastery was quiet as the sun began its descent beyond the horizon, bathing the world in hues of crimson and gold. Rama and the monk walked in silence. the lessons of the day weighing upon his heart. He had learned how to calm his mind, how to live in the present, how to give without expectation. And yet, something still felt incomplete. "Master," Rama said at last, "I have learned so much. My mind is clearer. My heart is lighter. But there is something I still don't understand." The monk turned to him with patient eyes. "Speak." Rama hesitated. "I still feel a longing. A part of me still searches for something more, something beyond all of this. I do not wish to suffer, but suffering still comes. I do not wish to be afraid, but fear still arises. How do I become truly free?" The monk smiled. "That, my dear Rama, is the final lesson, the path to nirvana." Rama's breath caught. He had heard the word before, spoken in hushed reverence. Nirvana, the ultimate state of peace, beyond suffering, beyond attachment. But he had never truly understood what it meant. The monk sat beneath a great Bodhi tree, motioning for Rama to do the same. "Nirvana is not a place, Rama. It is not something to be reached in the future. It is a state of being, a realization of truth." Rama leaned in. "What truth?" The monk's voice was gentle, yet firm. "The truth that everything you seek is already within you." Rama's mind raced. "But if that is true, why do people suffer? Why do I still feel longing?" The monk exhaled slowly. "Because people believe in the illusion of the self. They believe they are separate from the world, separate from others. They cling to their identity, their desires, their fears. But nirvana is the moment you wake up and realize you were never separate at all." Rama's chest tightened. "I don't understand." The monk picked up a small candle resting beside him. He held it between them and lit the wick. The flame flickered, steady and warm. "This flame," the monk said, "is your identity, your name, your past, your fears, your desires. It is everything you believe makes you who you are." Rama watched the flame dance. The monk then reached for another candle. Without hesitation, he used the first flame to light the second. A new flame sprang to life, just as bright, just as warm. Then, without a word, the monk blew out the first candle. Rama's eyes widened. The first flame was gone, and yet its light still burned in the second candle. The monk turned to him. "Tell me, Rama, where did the first flame go?" Rama opened his mouth to answer, but no words came. The flame had not been destroyed. It had simply continued, changed, moved beyond what he could see. The monk's voice was quiet, but filled with power. "This is nirvana. The moment you realize that you, your thoughts, your identity, your fears, are like the flame. You were never separate. You were never alone. The fear of death, the fear of loss, It all vanishes when you understand that you are not the body. You are not even the mind. You are the light that continues. Rama's breath came in shallow gasps. He felt as if something inside him was unraveling, a knot he had never known existed. His whole life, he had believed he was a single drop of water, separate from the ocean. But now, he saw the truth. He was the ocean. Tears welled in his eyes. So, nirvana is freedom from the illusion of the self? The monk nodded. When there is no attachment, there is no suffering. When there is no self, there is no fear. Rama's heart pounded. He had spent his life searching for peace, for something outside himself. But now he understood. The peace he sought had been there all along. The monk smiled. But there is one final lesson you must learn, a lesson that will guide you as you walk this path. Rama wiped his eyes and met the monk's gaze. What is it? The monk's voice was steady, filled with quiet reverence. Wisdom. The evening sky deepened into shades of indigo and violet as Rama and the monk remained seated beneath the great Bodhi tree. The air was still, as if the universe itself were listening. Rama's heart was full, his mind clearer than ever before. Yet he knew there was one last lesson to receive, the lesson that would bring everything together. Master, he said softly, I have learned to meditate, to be mindful, to show compassion. I have learned to let go, to embrace change, to give freely. I have even begun to understand nirvana, the freedom beyond suffering. But there is something I still do not know. The monk's eyes gleamed. What is it? Rama inhaled deeply. How do I walk this path every day? How do I not forget what I have learned? How do I ensure I do not fall back into the illusions of the world? The monk smiled. That, Rama, is the purpose of wisdom. Rama leaned in, eager to listen. Wisdom, the monk continued, is not just knowing the truth. It is living the truth. It is seeing life clearly, not as you wish it to be, not as you fear it to be, but as it truly is. Rama frowned slightly. But how can I always see clearly? The world is full of distractions, full of desires, full of pain. How do I stop myself from being pulled back into it? The monk reached down and picked up a small bowl of water, placing it between them. The surface was perfectly still, reflecting the light of the moon. Look into the water, he said. What do you see? Rama peered down. I see myself. The monk then dipped his finger into the bowl, sending ripples across the surface. And now? Rama watched as his reflection distorted, broken apart by the waves. Now I see. Nothing clearly. The monk nodded. Your mind is like this water. When it is still, you see the world as it truly is. When it is disturbed by desire, by fear, by attachment. You see only distortions. Rama felt a shiver run through him. The wise do not believe in these distortions, the monk continued. They do not chase after illusions, nor do they run from what is. They simply see. And because they see, they do not suffer. Rama swallowed hard. He had spent his whole life looking through a mind that was never still, never clear. He had mistaken his fears for truth, his desires for needs, his suffering for reality. But now he understood. To be wise is to see through the illusions, to no longer be deceived by the ripples. The monk's voice was gentle, yet firm. Wisdom is a choice, Rama. You must choose to see clearly, again and again, every single day. This is why you must continue to meditate, to practice mindfulness, to cultivate compassion, not just once, but for a lifetime. Wisdom is not a destination. It is a way of walking. Rama closed his eyes, breathing in the cool night air. His heart was steady. His mind was calm. For the first time, he felt ready, not just to understand these teachings, but to live them. He opened his eyes and looked at the monk with deep reverence. I see now. The path is not something outside of me. It is within me, in every thought, in every action, in every moment. The monk smiled. Yes, and now, Rama, your journey truly begins. Rama bowed deeply, his soul filled with gratitude. He had come searching for answers, but he had found something far greater. He had found himself. The moon hung high above the monastery, casting a silver glow over the quiet earth. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the echoes of all that had been learned. Rama sat beside the monk, his heart full, his mind open. He had arrived seeking answers, seeking peace. And now, he had found something even greater. Yet, a thought lingered, a quiet question that would not leave him. Master, he said softly, now that I understand these teachings, what comes next? The monk smiled. What do you think comes next? Rama hesitated. He had learned how to quiet his mind, how to embrace the present, how to let go, how to give, how to see clearly. And yet, the world was still the same. People still suffered. Life would still bring pain, loss, and uncertainty. His brow furrowed. I thought that once I understood, everything would change, that I would reach a place where suffering no longer existed. The monk chuckled softly. Ah, Rama, that is the final illusion. Rama looked up, confused. The world will not change, the monk said. Suffering will not disappear. People will still be lost in their own minds. The river of life will still flow, sometimes gently, sometimes wildly. The sun will rise and fall. The seasons will turn. What changes is you. Rama exhaled slowly. You will still feel emotions, the monk continued. You will still face loss, uncertainty, and challenges. But now, you will not be ruled by them. You will not be a prisoner to your mind. You will be the sky, watching the storms pass, untouched by their fury. Rama closed his eyes, letting those words settle deep within him. The purpose of this path, the monk said, is not to escape life, but to embrace it fully. To see it as it is, without fear, without resistance, without clinging. Rama opened his eyes. So, the journey never ends? The monk smiled. No, and that is the greatest gift, because every day you will have the opportunity to practice, to live with awareness, to choose kindness, to see clearly. And as you do, your peace will grow deeper, your heart will open wider, and your wisdom will shine brighter. Rama felt something shift inside him. He had spent his life seeking an end, a final destination where suffering would no longer exist. But now, he understood. There was no end. There was only the path. A path that continued with every breath, every thought, every action. He bowed deeply to the monk, his heart overflowing with gratitude. Thank you, Master, for everything. The monk simply nodded. Go now, Rama. Live what you have learned. And remember, whenever the mind becomes clouded, whenever the heart feels heavy, return to the breath. Return to the present. Return to yourself. Rama stood, inhaling deeply. The air felt different. The night sky seemed brighter. The earth beneath his feet felt steady, strong. He turned and walked away from the monastery, not as the man he had been when he arrived, but as someone new, someone awake. His journey was just beginning. But this time, he was no longer lost. This time, he knew the way.